so much for coming despite your very busy schedule. All those seminar papers, all those stories, those poems, those essays, they'll be done before you know it. It'll be good. Please have pizza. No, that's great. You need a break. You need a pause. Please have pizza, drinks, everything. The goal is to not leave anything here. Yeah, but without further ado, I want to introduce our first reader. She is Aeriel Merrilat, fellow Speakeasy coordinator and first-year MFA fiction writer.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Hi. Hello. Okay. I'm going to be reading an excerpt out of a short story I wrote called Even the Hard Parts. All right, here it goes. When Gracie was 9, she ate a bird. Her mother has it on film, thankfully, because otherwise nobody would have believed her. She ate it whole, bones, wings, beak, and all. For weeks, she could feel it fluttering around her stomach, despite the multiple white-haired doctors and shiny x-rays that said otherwise. Every once in a while, when she opened her mouth to yawn or devour a bowl of cereal, a squawk would emerge, soft yet high-pitched. Gracie was never one for words or conversations that lasted longer than a few seconds. She wore her sandy hair tied low in a ponytail that swung side to side down her back as she walked. She wore the same pair of black sneakers every day, no matter the weather. And when they grew too small for her feet, she would ask her mother to buy her another pair, exactly the same. Gracie did what she was told when she was told. She enjoyed things that were sturdy and unchanging, like oak trees and nickels. A few months before she ate the bird, Gracie started getting lost. She would wander through the hallways of her school, walking into the wrong classrooms. She would walk up and down the aisles of the grocery store, looking for her mother, who was hidden somewhere in between rows of frozen corn and mozzarella sticks. Gracie even got lost in her dreams. On nights when she tossed and turned until she finally lulled herself to sleep, Gracie would find herself surrounded by an endless sea of sand, grains smaller than she could comprehend, stretching out around her for miles and miles. That's where she first met the bird, perched low on the branch of a desert tree. It looked back at her with round, gray eyes, blinking twice as if to say, "Let me help you." She followed its glistening wings as it flew through the desert, swimming through the thick sand to see where the bird would take her. In the morning, Gracie realized that the normality she so valued in her life was suddenly falling from under her. The bird had come into her life, invaded the most private crevices of herself. The dream didn't occur only once. It happened over and over again. And every night she would wake up before the bird got where it was going. 2 weeks after the dreams began, on a cool spring morning, Gracie saw the bird in her backyard. It was nestled in a crook of a sycamore tree that sat square in the middle of a wide patch of grass. Its silver wings caught Gracie's eyes through the sliding glass door. The morning dew had collected on the leaves, giving them a mystical glow. Gracie walked out the back door without any shoes on, feeling the cold dampness of the freshly cut grass in between her toes. She approached the bird with caution, careful not to wake it. Before she knew what she was doing, she grabbed its left wing with her chubby fingers and swallowed the bird whole, much to her mother's horror. After Gracie ate the bird, her mother sent her to a gastroenterologist, psychologist, and even a psychic. They all told her that Gracie was fine. There was no bird in her stomach, and even if there were, her stomach acid would have digested it by now, even the hard parts. Each one of the doctors asked Gracie why she had eaten the bird in the first place. It seemed their curiosity of such a small, sweet child devouring a fragile creature like that could not be satiated. Gracie didn't have an answer to give them. All she could do was look at each of them in their white coats, shrug her shoulders, and muttered an unenthusiastic, "Don't know." One doctor thought she had eaten it to spite her mother, a clear perfectionist. Another thought she might be a psychopath and suggested she be tested further. And yet another said that perhaps she was just a hungry, quirky child who didn't know any better. Gracie's mother didn't know what to believe. She only knew that her daughter was broken and no doctor could fix her. A year later, when Gracie was 10, her mother took her to lunch at a diner. They sat down in a red patent leather booth that sparkled ever so slightly from the light of a fluorescent bulb hanging above the table. The late Wednesday morning sky was weighed down by a thick sheet of gray. Gracie, we need to talk about something. This bird of yours. Your teacher called the house last night and told me you were squawking in class again. We've talked about this, honey. You scare the other kids when you do that. I want you to be happy, Gracie. I want you to make friends and grow up to have a normal life, and that's not going to happen if you let the bird have its way. I need you to promise me something, okay? You can't talk about the bird anymore with anyone. You can't tell a soul. Promise? Gracie looked up at her mother's permed hair and pale lipstick. She blinked twice and let out a squawk just loud enough that the waiter across the diner heard it and dropped the 2 cups of orange juice he was bringing to the table. That was the last Gracie talked about the bird with anyone. Before Gracie ate the bird, she was an average child, ordinary with just the right amount of friends, and if she played her cards right, a future in a house with a lawn and a few children to call her own. That was what Gracie's mother had always envisioned for her daughter. To Gracie's suburban family, the clearest path to a happy and fulfilled life was to live a normal and quiet one. The only thing standing in her way was the bird. It was always there, sitting under her ribs as in a cage, keeping her company when the night grew dark. There was no escaping it, even though Gracie tried. She tried everything a 10-year-old could do to hush the squawks and flutters of a bird. Tape, cotton balls, layers on layers of old t-shirts, nothing would do. The bird's presence never faltered, and it never let Gracie forget it was there. As she grew older and her life began to expand, Gracie found herself with less time to listen to the bird or come up with ways to hush its squawks. She found herself thinking of it less and less. Other things occupied the space in her mind, like boys and dramatic poetry and eyeliner and various shades of black. Even through the haze of adolescence, there were still moments when the bird would remind her that it was, in fact, very much still there, nestled in the cozy crevices of her ribcage. Some days she could swear she felt it move to her spleen or perch right behind her left shoulder blade. When the first boy to kiss her, Jacob, put his hands up her skirt in the back of a 1998 Toyota Camry, the bird was there. She felt it fluttering, as if it was looking for a way to escape. It banged against her stomach so hard that she threw up a box of red vines into Jacob's lap. The bird wasn't always Gracie's friend. The bird was there when Kelly convinced Gracie to pierce her ear cartilage with one of her mother's old sewing needles and a lemon slice. It made a fuss, squawking as loud as it could, flapping its wings all over the place. But Gracie had grown accustomed to these occasional rumblings in her innards. She chose not to acknowledge it, called it by any other name: indigestion, a gluten allergy, lactose intolerance. The bird was also there Gracie's freshman year of college when Henry slid himself into her after she passed out on the common room couch. She never told anyone, but the bird saw it all. The bird witnessed plastic cup after plastic cup filled with vodka and lemonade make its way to Gracie's mouth and down her esophagus. It watched as Henry walked Gracie back to her dorm. The bird cringed as she fell into the couch in the common room where Henry conveniently fell on top of her. When the bird couldn't take it anymore, it mustered up enough courage and wiggled its way through Gracie's uterus, where it pecked the soft tip of Henry until he got the point and left. No matter what Gracie did or where she went, the bird was there, and it didn't seem to Gracie as if it had plans on leaving anytime soon. Every night when she went to sleep, she would twinge with pain as the bird's beak settled into her lower abdomen, its sharp point pushing against her pancreas. It was in these still moments of the night that Gracie almost felt at peace with the bird. She could almost hear the small flutter of its heart, the whisper of its lungs as their breath became one. Gracie graduated college and got a job at an insurance company where she did accounting and sat at a desk that had the perfect view of Paul. Paul, a guy of average height with average hair who she was to marry 2 years later. The bird was there when she went on her first date with Paul at a sleepy diner. They sat across from one another in hard vinyl booths that stuck to the back of Gracie's thighs under the new dress she bought just for the occasion. They drank black coffee, and Paul talked about his dreams of raising a family and mowing a lawn. Weekend after weekend passed with Paul. They went to the movies and ate popcorn. The bird pecked at the seeds that fell into Gracie's stomach, feeling too lethargic to do much of anything else. They went ice skating where Gracie fell hard onto her side, bruising her left kidney and the bird's white ring. Paul even took her to a county fair and bought her a stick swirled high with airy cotton candy. The bird watched as Paul bought her things, held her hand, and said the right words in just the right order. It was like watching an actor repeating memorized lines, auditioning to get a part that he didn't really even want in the first place. The bird watched as Gracie fell into a pattern, bought a cat, and littered her windowsills with tiny potted succulents. The bird grew lazy. It grew large with indifference, its stomach bulging, nearly colliding with Gracie's. The bird fell into a deep depression. With Paul around, it was easy to distract herself from the constant hums that came from just below her belly button. She thought that she had found something good, something stable to hold on to. She wasn't going to let the bird ruin it. Soon, Gracie forgot all about the bird, just as most grown-ups forget about silly, childish things that are only meant to live in blurry photos and fuzzy home videos. Before long, Paul and Gracie were engaged. Her mother was elated when she called with the good news. A couple weeks after their wedding, Paul left to go on his evening run, and Gracie laid on her bed, staring at the stucco ceiling. That night, for the first time in a long time, Gracie thought about the bird. She thought about the time she knew it had saved her, and the time she didn't know but was sure it did. Gracie placed a palm on her bare stomach and pushed down gently. She rested both of her hands on the warmth of her abdomen and waited, listening for a flutter or muffled squawk. Our next reader is Sam Lane, a first-year MFA poet from South Georgia. Sam.
I'm Sam. Hi, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I would like to begin by just saying that I genuinely appreciate and respect everyone in this room. So thank you so much for sharing this time with us. I know. I practiced that. So I just have 3, maybe 4 poems for y'all. As it said, I'm from South Georgia, which I miss dearly. I really, really love the South. However, I love it for complicated reasons. So this first poem is dedicated towards that. And if you were in my radical writing and rhetoric class, you have heard these. I miss the Deep South. Always the first line. I miss the Deep South. I miss the swamp. And not just for the black water that simmers with tadpoles, or the humidity that makes the air so thick it becomes something that has to be chewed. I miss the violence. I miss those hard lessons that come at you fast and sometimes draw blood. Like the whisper of Sister Mosquito that warns you that scratching will only make it worse, and that you can kill her if you are fast, but you will smack yourself in the process every time. And she taught, and I miss listening to the glittering gnats at dusk that tell you that even what annoys you can be beautiful if the sun hits it just right. And I miss the peat because it will call down the lightning just to prove to you that even water can burn. Fuck, I miss the violence of the South. I miss the stick and poke you get from the sticker bush. I miss the game of stick and move you play with the water moccasin. I miss the violent dialectic between need and want and take and grab. I miss the good old boy that can field dress a deer as fast as he can field dress his prom date. And I miss the racism. I miss the fuck you nigger, you don't belong here versus the, oh I'm sorry, I didn't know I couldn't touch your hair. And I miss this, and I miss the stories that the trees will tell you, although it is not always something that you want to hear. And I miss my grandma, because she taught me that to love someone is to cook for them, because who doesn't crave a belly that's full? And she taught me how to fish, and that the day's first catch gets thrown back in little white cubes at the end of your hook, and that you cut strips from the side of a still breathing fish, because live bait makes the best bait. And you know that's true because if you had to choose between an old life and a new one, you would choose the new one every time. And she taught me what cruelty looks like, in the bottom of a bucket, breathing its own blood, and taught me that cruelty can be born from love and still serve you chocolate cake. And she taught me that feeling you get of when you know that you've seen something that's wrong, and that you can't always trust when someone you love says, don't worry, baby, they can't feel a thing. And I miss the violence because scars give credibility to any story, and all those southern memories have curled edges. And even now, I can hear the call of the swamp, I can feel its pull, and I can't wait to go back. But you best believe I won't get caught without my pocket knife. Thank you. So this story is about my, this next poem is a lot about kind of something I research quite often, which is like this mass lynching that happened in my hometown. I'm like obsessed with it. And books on lynching don't warn you when pictures are coming up. And so it was born out of just like a lot of difficult research that I kind of like do kind of compulsively at this point. Do not look at the Negro in his wretchedness nor the Negress in her distant loveliness. I would have made an excellent invisible man. Today, I did something I swore I would never do again. Looked at a lynch photograph. Another tree turned murderer, another pair of hands I'm relieved have gone limp, another neck pulled into taffy. And there's nothing sweet about this except for the smiles of the little girls that bookend a young man's life. And the caption says, do not look at the Negro. I would have made an excellent invisible man. So look at the crowd and notice how it bulges beyond the frame of the picture into things that you can relate to. Think hike in the woods. Think family barbecue. Think safety in numbers. And do not look at the Negro in the eye because he might look at you back and remind you of something that you relate to. And do not ask him questions because he might answer with a mouthful of moths who are citizens of darkness forced to worship a white sun. And do not ask him about his wife because she is in the county over on the next page in a photograph. And do not look at the ring on her finger as though it was the shiniest thing against her charred skin. Rather notice the river and know that it was meant to be more permanent than she was. And notice how the flowers on the bank will not wilt like the flowers on her dress. And do not ask her if she would like to be buried in white, because I think she already was. I would have made an excellent invisible man, and so I will not laugh if you ask if you prefer if she be entombed in black, because I think she already was. And I will not point out that his clothes are shredded as if he was fighting for something more than his life. And I will not thank God too loudly that her dress is unwrinkled, because we all know that there are fates worse than death. And we've pictures to prove that. Fates like learning that your gods do not love you, and that they were never gods, but things that you relate to. Fates like being afraid of catching the eye of the crowd. Fates like being an invisible man. Thank you.
Our next reader is Lissette Escariz. She's a Cuban immigrant and PhD student in the English department at Pitt. She was born and raised in La Habana, Cuba, where she was educated until she had to immigrate to the U.S. She has lived the larger part of her time abroad in Miami, Florida, where she dedicated herself to teaching, dancing Cuban salsa, and enjoying the Caribbean weather. When she thinks she has spare time, Lissette enjoys painting, playing the piano, and cooking the food of her Isla Bella. Welcome to Sex.
La música de mi Isla Bella. Yeah. So, I was going to do a little dance, but I decided not to. Anyways, tonight I have 4 poems for you. 2 of them are in Spanish, and 2 of them are mostly in English. And the first one is called Hombres Blancos, which translates into white men. Hombres blancos que se creen siempre tener la razón sin pensar ni realizar que en sus cabezas hay un mojón. Hay que ser muy arrogante, egoísta y repugnante para pensar que tus ficciones son concretas descripciones. Hombres blancos que acostumbran definir cuerpos ajenos. Mujer, hombre es lo que existe, no hablaremos de transgéneros. No hablaremos de la raza porque no ven el color. No hablaremos de lo queer, pues lo hétero es superior. Hombres blancos que se aferran a ilusiones tan machistas que se insultan si una jeva se pronuncia feminista. Nos proclaman disidentes a lo que es natural si exigimos que respeten nuestros cuerpos, no violar. Hombres blancos que rechazan nuestras afirmaciones, 1000 verdades que amenazan el privilegio de varones. Y si alguien no responde in a way that strokes their ego, gritan estas feminazis y se sienten oprimidos. Hombres blancos que se insultan al leer este poema porque aquí no hay un esquema que corrija su condena. Hasta esperan que nosotras hagamos la labor de inculcarles ser conscientes y hacerles sentir mejor. Hombres blancos, atención. Basta ya de los pretextos. This is who I am, not my fault that I'm a white, straight, masculine, macho man. Acalórense a callarse, den la cara, pues les toca entender que no es de ustedes ni el aliento de nuestras bocas. No seremos la carnada que alimenta su poder, no seremos lesbianas que entretengan tu placer, no seremos inmigrantes explotados y humillados, no seremos entidades que prolonguen tu legado. The next one I will read is called Secretos Conocidos. So this is, one of the ones that is mostly in English. He pinches your nose shut and giggles, excited that he has a sister, una hermanita menor, to play ball and climb palm trees with, ruffle the montañitas of red petals under blooming flamboyanes, catch lizards and taunt tarantulas, slide down la loma del 70 en Chivichana, stain your teeth with the purple meat of almendras, quench your thirst in the sticky sweetness of guarapo, jugar al escondite y al cogido en la oscuridad de una noche habanera. He's your guardian, your mommy says. He's supposed to protect you de los otros varones. Step in front of you to blind the piercing eyes of leering men. He's supposed to teach you courage, help you jump over fences, hold your arm over his shoulder when your feet fail you, estrechar su mano cuando has caído, pave a road so you won't have to machetear la hierba y elevar la tierra, teach you through his footprints how to get there cuando no hay camino. Cosas que solo un hermano te puede enseñar. He turns the doorknob slowly, shadowing his way through your refuge, and you do not hear his cautious footsteps over the persistent chirping de los grillos, over the lulling song of the sea, over the soft dance of the wind through palm trees, over the soothing, musky scent of your grandmother's jasmine en galán de noche. He peels off the sheet over your chest y captura un grito entre su palma, his fingers undoing buttons y promesas, gripping, pinching, piercing, snailing through your lips, tearing skin and trust, leaving a wet trail of shame. The next day, you visit the sea, hoping that her salt, her cool caress, will have the sympathy your mother did not when you showed her the bruises, the hand grips, la sangre entre tus piernas, hoping that her foam will drown his fingerprints y la vergüenza in the expanse of her ancestral waves, because this time, too, blood was not thick enough. The next one is called Mami este poema, which translates into Mother this poem. El viento recuerda el susurro de tu mirada, ese secreto entre su voz y tu risa, esa metáfora entre tu corazón y su pulso. El viento conserva el murmuro de tus caricias que el ventilador en la ventana trató de ahogar en las olas de la brisa. Detrás de esa puerta sellaste tu voz, que entre las sábanas escondías de tu Dios, transformando el aire que te daba vida en un poema para tu mejor amiga. ¿Te acuerdas cuando dormías a su lado sin sospechar que tu hija te extrañaba y mirando por la rendija te vio sus labios rozar? Pensaste que llamarla mi tía, que darme su nombre disfrazaría los días que con ella pasaste, las noches en las que a ella te entregaste. Yo amo en tu idioma, en el silencio que ahoga las huellas de una pasión prohibida. Que sepa el que no habla silencio que tu voz guardó un secreto. Susurros entre las caricias de un abrazo, gemido bajo los hilos de su cabello. Mami, este poema no recuperará tu voz, no te traerá corriendo a calmar su llanto, no posará un beso de tus labios sobre su dolor, no hará que la mujer que amaste admita que lo que hacían en ese cuarto era más que conversación. The last one I will read is called Droplets. When I come forward, as we rarely do, and show the marks of your hands over the waters of my body, will you tremble as the ground does when the earth shifts in place? Or are you confident to think you can bend the gravity of tidal waves? When I come forward, as we rarely do, and brittle your weaponry of fear, ensnaring the flow of my river, will you think me weak, deem me mad, so to speak, another woman whose currents are just bitter? When I come forward, as we rarely do, and push the stones of your prisons onto the edges of my shores, will you discover as you pick brick that rock now can't plunge in, only skip? When I come forward, as we rarely do, and nourish the desert you have left, and flood the seams that stitch your house, dissolve the limestone of your lies, tell me then, who decides an ocean is no longer clean? Who decides a river cannot rise pristine? Who decides the rain cannot hail disdain? Who decides a storm can be contained? Who dares decide over the waters of my body? Or have you witnessed the ocean respecting any boundary? What arrogance these men have, to think their violence can mar la potencia de nuestro mar, to think their violence can impair a resolve born out of despair. Thank you.